see. Perfect. Now we're recording. Okay, Clint, we're so glad you're here, and we hope a few more people come, but you would not believe the number of people that asked me, is this going to be recorded? Is this going to be recorded? I'm sure that there was at least 20 people that said that. It's hard in the middle of the day to get away. So we are all so happy that you're here and that we can record you and share your goodness to other people. But I'd love to introduce Clint for you. When I went to search Dr. D on my computer this morning, I thought, what information should I share about Clint? And I thought, I'll just search for Dr. D. Oh my word, sir, you were all over my computer. It was Dr. D, 27 files for sinus and allergies, limonene, top oils for ailments, emotional technique, most commonly used oils. It was just file after file after file. So you have enriched my life in so many ways, and I'm excited for you to share with new friends and a few old friends as well. Clint has 7 children. He has his hands full. He has the most beautiful wife, Jen, who is cares for those children. I think you have 3 girls or 2 girls.
2 girls, 5 boys.
2 girls, 5 boys. Oh my goodness, they have their hands full. The girls are towards the top of the family, so they got a busy boy household. He is a wellness chiropractor, and he has changed so many lives. You are going to get a feel for the way he changes lives, but I'm talking physically and emotionally. So you are really going to love the things that he shares. I got introduced to him. I knew him from church. I passed you at church a few times, Clint. You were new, and you kept saying, Shalene, you need to come see me. And I was like, I'm perfectly healthy. Why do I need to go see you? I'm just fine. And then my mom and my mother-in-law came to visit at the same time for 6 weeks because they wanted to go see Dr. D. So they came and stayed with me, and I brought my mom, Sally, my mother-in-law, Mary Lou, in to see Dr. D. Well, he kept saying, they need this oil, they need this oil. And I would be saying, what can I do to get these oils cheaper for them? And he says, well, just talk to Sherry right here. She'll help you out. And Sherry was there to help me, and Dr. D was there to help me start my doTERRA journey. So that's how I got started. Wasn't long after that I thought, you know what? I think I do need to go see Dr. D. I've got a lot of emotional baggage, and I had heard that he had helped people with emotions. And I can remember I was still pretty new at knowing you, Dr. D, and I sat there on your table, and you were trying to help me release some of my mom issues and my brother issues and other issues I have. And he put a mirror up in front of my face, and he said, Shalene, I want you to look at yourself, and I want you to say, everybody can still love you if you don't get anything done. And I took a deep breath, and I looked at him, and I said, you do not know me very well. I cannot say that. That was so hard to say. That was just an emotional breakthrough for me to be able to get past that. And the baggage, okay, this isn't all about me, but it was all about me for him. And he is a good man. He loves you. Makes you feel in his office like you're the only one there. And if you live close to Dallas, where he is now up in Frisco, you would be blessed to go and see him. So I'm going to turn the time over to you, Dr. D, to share whatever you want to share, but I have a list of questions too. If you end up drawing a blank and want some questions, we got things we can do. And if you have questions, put them in the chat and I'll read them off for Dr. D.
Yeah, definitely. Well, thanks guys. Some of you guys I know, good friends. If I haven't seen you for a while, it's good to see you. I'm getting more used to Zoom. Zoom was a little tough for me, especially at the beginning of the pandemic. I like to be in front of people. I like to be able to talk to people and like to see. And so I'm getting a little more used to it. But for those of you that I haven't met, like she said, I'm Dr. Clint Damaris. I love what I do. I feel like it's my gift in life. I love seeing people get better. It's just one of the greatest aspects of what I get to do. Not everybody gets to actually love their job. I joke around, it's all fun and games until I have to do paperwork, until somebody wants some codes for insurance or something. Other than that, I absolutely love everything that I do. The days fly by, and the things that I'm going to share a few things and I really appreciate that introduction. She was way too nice. But what I do want people to know and recognize about the body, and I tell everybody this all the time, your body knows how to heal. Do you guys believe that?
Yeah.
Your body knows how to. This is how God made us. We are self-healing, self-regulating, if you want to put it that way. I always use the example, especially since I do have 7 kids, of pregnancy. Your body knows exactly how to do this. It knows how to get pregnant. It knows how to grow that baby, knows how to deliver that baby, knows how to feed that baby. It's like, how does this happen? This is an intrinsic, inborn, innate thing. And the body just knows how to do it. And what I tell people frequently in medicine, that one of the biggest problems, if not the biggest problem in medicine, is that people, well, actually, let me ask you guys, what do you guys think? What do you guys think the biggest problem in medicine is? We're just going to throw some things out there. What's the problems?
Hmm. Probably pain or sleep.
Well, so those are like symptom problems, but I'm saying like the
Okay.
problem with our medicine system. If somebody was to say the system has issues, like what would
Oh.
you say like the problem with the system is? Go ahead, Sherry.
I would say that people get paid for you to be sick. And so the people selling the drugs to cure, right, are also creating the problem.
Okay, so the money side of it, absolutely. Insurance is a freaking train wreck disaster. But then
Pharmaceuticals.
pharmaceuticals, you could argue that socialized medicine has all of its problems too. There's really like, there's not like this perfect system, right? So the money part of it, the pharmaceuticals, what other problems do we have in medicine?
Leslie says that you don't look for the root cause, you know.
Yeah, there's a big one, right?
Good job, Leslie.
Yeah, Leslie nailed it. So this is what I tell people a lot. Now, there's a lot of others. I mean, we could talk all day long just on the problems that our medical system has. But I would say one problem is that we diagnose people based on symptoms and then we treat the symptom without getting to the root cause of the problem, right? So, and I get people all the time, they come in and they look a little bit confused or shocked sometimes when I do their history and they tell me what's going on and I go, well, you've never been diagnosed. And they go, no, I have irritable bowel. I have chronic fatigue. I have headaches. I'm like, no, those aren't diagnoses. Those are symptoms. Right? You told the doctor that you have irritable bowel. His job is to tell you why you have irritable bowel. Right? A chronic fatigue diagnosis, like you're tired. That's the diagnosis. You're tired. Right? Like that doesn't make sense. Hey, we ran $5,000 worth of tests and we figured it out. You're tired. Like that's ridiculous, right? So what I tell people is they have not been diagnosed properly. And I tell people all the time, I don't really care how many different symptoms you have. Now I'm not saying I don't care about their problems. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying I don't want to diagnose and then treat a symptom. If you come in with a headache, I don't want to give you a pill for the headache and then send you packing. The pill may get rid of the symptom of the headache, but if you haven't answered the question, why do you have headaches? Guess what's coming back? The next day, the next week, you're getting that headache again, and then again, and again, and again. And as long as you're not, I mean, you have to take the meds, right? But you haven't figured out why. Now, what if that headache is coming because you have a food allergy? What if you have a parasite, right? What if this is stress induced? What if you need an adjustment in your neck? Like there's so many reasons, your thyroid's off, that you could actually have a headache. We need to do our due diligence, figure out why the problem is there to begin with, and remove those barriers. And when we do that, that's when you really find healing. And that's when you're able to really get there. And it's surprising because I tell people when they go, Doc, you did it. You're amazing. You fixed it. I go, well, I mean, I removed a barrier, but then your body did the healing. Your body's the one that directs all of that, right? And so what's so cool about essential oils actually address and remove the root cause of our disease problems. They're not Band-Aids, they're not drugs. They are actually addressing the root cause of our health issues. And that's one of the reasons, there's many, but that's one of the reasons that I love oils so much. Not only are they cost effective when you talk about pharmaceutical versus cost, I mean, the comparison's not, I mean, you're talking about pennies per dosage for an oil. And I mean, you should see some of the people that come in to see me. It's crazy. They're going, yeah, the doc put me on this special, experimental drug and it's $10,000. And it's just like, what? I mean, this is what we've come to. I mean, you can't get medical care unless you spend thousands and thousands, tens, hundreds of thousands of dollars sometimes, right? And this is part of our problem. And then they're just attacking the symptoms. People are frustrated. People come to see me all the time and they're super frustrated. I'm not usually doc number one. I joke around that we're going to change the name to the Last Ditch Effort Clinic instead of Well Within. right? And unfortunately, like I said, I'm not usually doc number one. I'm usually doc number 7 or 8. And they've been down the road of this and that and tried this and that. And they've spent a lot of money, time, effort, energy. They're having interactions with the drugs. These things aren't always helping, yada, yada. And then they come in and I go, well, let's get you a proper diagnosis so we can actually treat it. And the thing is, once you figure out what the real issue is, it's not always that difficult. My mentors used to tell me that your diagnosis, the tools that you use to find the problems can be complicated and even expensive, but the treatments should always be simple. Because it's about giving the body what it needs to function naturally. So that's where we talk about nutrition and we talk about proper sleep and stress management and making sure that you're adjusted, getting the immune system functioning correctly. Is it killing off infections like it's supposed to? Is it reacting to things it shouldn't? These can be balanced naturally. So that's what I love about essential oils. Essential oils have such a broad spectrum usage. You could literally pick an oil, close your eyes and just pick an oil out of your deal. And I could probably make an argument that that's antimicrobial. Just about every single oil ever created is antimicrobial. The antimicrobial factors reside in the oil, right? So essential oils are incredibly antimicrobial. They're incredibly anti-inflammatory. Same thing. I could basically cover my eyes, pick an oil out. I got 100 of them, pick one. You can make an argument that that oil is probably anti-inflammatory. It's going to have antioxidant properties. Now, each of these oils are very different in their makeup and the way that they're used. But once again, you pretty much can argue that on a cellular level, essential oils penetrate through the membranes, which is another one of those cool things that I love about oils, right? You put it on topically or take it into whatever, it is going to penetrate into the cell, inside the cell, and it's going to affect mitochondrial function, and it's going to affect cell signaling, it's going to affect immune system signaling. All this stuff is happening, because it is absorbed into the body. Now, there's a lot of other things I love about oils. This is a little bad, it is kind of manipulative, but one time my oldest boy, he was having some issue and I put some oil on him and he was in one of those funks, in one of those moods. He's like, oh, get it off. I don't want it, and I'm like, oh, okay, I'll get it. And I just rubbed it, And then I said, oh, there you go. And he looks at it and he's like, oh, okay. Yeah. It's absorbed into the system. I love it for kids. Oils are great. Herbs and vitamins aren't always easy to take. And a lot of these herbs are bitter and they taste nasty. And I always joke, I go, there's 2 types of docs. There's docs who don't have kids and thinks you can just put herbs in applesauce and every kid's going to take it. And then there's doctors who have kids and know better. That does not always happen. It's a 50-50. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. So I absolutely love oils for all those purposes. So, and like I said, just actually addressing root cause issues is a big deal. We're all managed, like very few people come into my office that don't have an immune system challenge of some type or an inflammation of some type. It just doesn't happen, right? So oils can help any of them. And like I said, take your pick. I mean, there's certain oils that'll be better than others. And if you're more skilled at using them, then that's better. But I mean, you could just pretty much pick up an oil, just pick up frankincense. And I'm telling you, you can help probably 99% of the people out there by just putting frankincense on them. I don't care where you put it. Frankincense will help their cellular function. It will help their inflammation and it will help their immune system. It's going to do it. Now, I talked to Shalene about this a little bit. I won't go into too much detail, but how many of you guys are familiar with the EO technique? How to use essential oils for emotional stress relief?
Yep. I
You
think
guys?
everybody's heard about it, but because I shared it at the retreat we had, but not everybody on here was at that retreat. So we've introduced it to people.
Okay, well, I'll do kind of a brief introduction to it. You guys can follow up if they have more specific questions if we run out of time. But one of the cool things about oils is they have, if we wanted to break it apart, and it's really not technically broken apart. I mean, we're mind, body, spirit, inseparably connected. But if you wanted to, you could argue that, oils have physical properties, right? So you get sunburn, you get a bug bite, you got a muscle that's hurting or whatever. Like there are physical properties to the oil. You could argue that there are immune system or neurological properties to an oil, right? So you could use some On Guard, use some tea tree. This is going to defend against invaders, so there's immune system properties. Oils also have emotional properties. So you can use essential oils to help you to manage identify, if you want to use that word, and to process underlying emotions. Emotions are interesting, really, if you study it. It's just a kind of a fascinating thing. It's like, what is an emotion? I mean, what is it even? What is it? And a lot of people would argue that emotions are negatively affecting their life, that there's a lot of stress. I mean, how many people in our world are not stressed? I mean, we live in a stressful world. There's a lot of stuff going on. So we could argue that these emotions are negative, but emotions are also what make our lives rich. If you didn't have emotions, you wouldn't have the ability to truly connect with others, like true love, true connection. Part of that comes from being real and having those real emotions. And we need some of the negative ones to help us to, I don't know if I want to say appreciate or good, but that dichotomy is important, right? Like, this is what it's like when I'm really sad, and then this is what it's like when I'm really happy, and this is when things are going well, right? And so we need these emotions. They're not all bad. We don't necessarily want to avoid all of them. We need to process them, though. So sometimes we get stuck. Something happens, a trauma, an issue, and we get stuck. Instead of feeling that emotion and processing it normally, that emotion gets stuck, and then it starts causing issues. And people come into my office all the time with a chronic physical problem, and really what they've got is an underlying emotional stress or trauma that's actually causing their physical issue. And so this is, for most of us in this group, that's not a surprising statement. But for a lot of people in the world, that's surprising. They've never heard that. They come into my office and they go, "Doc, nobody's been able to get rid of this migraine. It's crazy. I've had it for 5 years off and on. I've tried drugs, I've tried acupuncture, I've tried this, and this. I did Botox." I mean, and I test them and I find, well, physically, neurologically, you're pretty good. This is actually underlying stress. And then I find out, I do my technique and like, what happened 5 years ago? And then, here comes the story of something crazy, stressful, whatever it is. We address that emotional issue and then their headache goes away. Like sometimes all right on the spot. I mean, I've had people where they literally go, "I got a 6 out of 10 headache." I do an emotional release and they go, "Oh, it's kind of weird. My headache's gone." And it can happen instantaneously, just like that, just boom. And so tons of our physical issues are actually underlying emotional stress and trauma. And Stephen Covey says something I love. He says, "The way you see the problem is the problem."
Mhm.
We're not going to get out of life without problems, right? For those of you that read scripture, Jesus did not say, in the world, you could maybe have some trouble. It's a promise. He says, in the world, you will have trouble. You will have tribulation. You will have trial. That's a promise. It's not a maybe. So it's not about avoiding all problems. It's not possible. It's not possible. But our perception of those problems make a big difference. You don't necessarily have to be discouraged or depressed or down because of our stressors and our trouble. You don't have to like it. You don't have to like it, but you don't have to be discouraged by it either, though. Right. And there's a big difference between dealing with stress and being, like I said, actually really discouraged and down. So our goal is to process through these emotions, to not avoid them, but lean into them, to embrace them. Emotions are telling us things that are important. For instance, you might think anger is a bad emotion, but anger is actually a motivating force. It moves us to action. When something is wrong and we get angry about it, it motivates us to do something about it. You can't necessarily argue that anger is bad. The problem with anger is that we tend to justify poor behavior and actions toward other people in many instances because we're angry. That's a problem, right? So you can't treat other people poorly because you're angry, but just the feeling of anger is not a problem. In fact, we should pay attention when we're angry. What is it that I'm angry about, and why is it? What is it that's unfair? What is it that's unright? What is it that's not just? What kind of action do I need to take here? Why is my body telling me that? That's what we need to look at. once again, I'm quoting scripture again. In the Sermon on the Mount, it's really interesting. Jesus did not say, don't be angry. He said, and this is the King James Version, he says, he who is angry is in danger of judgment. Now, that's kind of old English, right? King James Version. When I translate that, this is what I hear. When you're angry, be careful. Be careful what you say, be careful what you do, be careful what you're justifying, because it may not be good, right? But he didn't say you can't be angry. Never said that, right? So we need to embrace these, like I said, negative emotions. If somebody in your family passed away and you did not cry and did not mourn and did not feel sad, that would be weird, right? If you were absolutely devastated and could hardly function for a few days, that would actually be more normal. Like that's what you need to do. That's what you need to process this. So the essential oils help us to process emotions. It's not about getting rid of them. It's not about, they're all bad or wrong. It's just processing. If you're stuck in a grief cycle, some essential oils of ginger could help you to process that emotion. If you're super angry at somebody and you can seem to let it go, you can't seem to forgive, an essential oil could help you to process that. You need to let that go. If you're feeling a lot of anxiety, you're nervous and scared and worried constantly about how things are going to go, what's going to happen, some cardamom oil could help you to process through some of that fear and dread and grief. I'm sorry, not grief, but fear and dread and anxiety, and help you to feel better about that. Now, the situation, once again, may not change one bit. It's really not situational per se. It's really more about the perception that we have of the situation. I'll give you an extreme example of perception. In my old office space, there was a back door that went out to this little like wooded area. There was a little creek down there, and I would throw birdseed out there, and these cardinals and blue jays would come right up on the doorstep right next to my door. And they were so pretty. These cardinals, like that really red, and it was pretty cool. But it also attracted some predators. So every now and then I'd look out there, there'd be snakes. I saw bobcats out there, coyotes, like it's all sorts. And literally I was treating a patient in a bobcat and walked right by that door. Like we're talking like 3 feet from me. I was like, whoa. So one time there was a snake out there and it was coming down the fence. Now, a lot of people are going to have a fairly negative visceral reaction to a big snake. Like, whoa, their fight or flight mode is like kicking in and they're having some anxiety. Somebody else might go, well, look at the cool gardener snake, walk outside, pick it up and play with it. So I ask people, is the snake the problem?
Mm.
The snake's not the problem. The way you see the snake is the problem, because that snake is actually not dangerous at all. They can't bite you. There's no poison in it at all. But the way you see that snake is what's causing you the problem. Mm-hmm. That absolute fight or flight mode, heart racing, blood pressure. I mean, all that crazy feeling you're getting, that adrenaline, that is a perception that you have of the snake, but it's not even true.
Can I throw in my thought process as you share this is about my children and how I parented and now how I'm grandparenting. If I could understand that my child is just having a reaction to something and help them through that and help them understand that, oh, would that be huge?
Well, yeah, because sometimes if somebody's having a really big emotional reaction, our knee-jerk response is to be like, hey, knock it off or calm down or everything's fine. There's no problem. Like, why are you upset? But the problem with that reaction is it invalidates how somebody feels, right? So are you guys familiar with this concept of validation? Show of hands.
Yeah.
Anybody seen the YouTube video called It's Not About the Nail?
Oh, yeah. In the head. Yeah.
That is all about validation, right? If you guys have not seen this video, it's about 2 minutes long. It's absolutely freaking hilarious. And it's a little weird at first. So it shows this girl. In fact, she's the girl on the new Top Gun movie, which is one of my favorite ever. The new Top Gun movie, Top Gun Maverick, was like amazing. In fact, my wife bought me the jacket that Tom Cruise had for Halloween. I was Maverick. The girl, Phoenix, the pilot, this is how she got started. So in the video, it shows her turned sideways like this, and she's talking, and her face is like really obscure. It's just kind of like this little part of her head. And she's complaining about something. She's like, it's just this like, I don't know what it is. I'm afraid it's not going to go away. And she turns and there's a nail in her forehead. And so it's kind of weird, like what's going on? And her husband goes, well, you do have a nail in your forehead. And she goes, it is not about the nail. And he goes, are you sure? Because I bet if we got that out of there, these problems. And she goes, this is what she said. She goes, I don't need you to fix it. I need you to stop trying to fix it. And he goes, I'm not trying to fix it. I'm just trying to tell you, that this nail. And she goes, you're doing it right now. All I really need for you is to listen to me. And he's like, okay. And she goes, it's this like achy, I don't know what it is. It's like all my sweaters are snagged, like all of them. And she turns to him and he goes, wow, hon, that sounds really hard. And she goes, thank you, it is. She grabs his hand and it's this like extreme, okay, like example. But at the end of the day, people don't want to be fixed. They don't like to be told not to feel the way they're feeling. What people wanted to feel is validated. Now, the thing is, you can validate somebody even if you don't agree. This is one of the hugest concepts I've ever learned in my life. You can tell somebody, man, I can see that this is really hard for you, or that you're really sad, or that you're really pissed off about this, even if you don't understand why. In your mind, you might be going, I don't understand why you would be upset about this. In my mind, this is a nothing burger. I can't fathom this, but you don't have to understand it. You are just showing that you care about somebody else and that you understand that they're frustrated, sad, hurt, whatever it is, and you can be there for them and you don't have to fix it. In fact, that usually frustrates people. So we do this all the time because it's uncomfortable for us if somebody's emotional. So our knee-jerk reaction is try and fix it as quick as we can or get them over it. Like for example, here's one. Let's say that the family dog passes away. A fixer would tell the kids, guys, it's going to be okay. We'll get a new dog. We'll get a new one, right? I'll get one just looks just like Fluffy, right? We'll get a new Fluffy, right? There's a lot of things that we might say. Fluffy was really old, and or you know what? The vet, it wasn't the vet's fault, but he made a mistake. There's all these different things that we could do. Honestly, probably the best thing you could do is give him a big hug and just be like, man, this sucks. You probably miss Fluffy. He was awesome, right? He was a part of the family. And that will do more than any other fix you could ever do. Now, if the kid says, can we get another dog? You could say, absolutely. We could totally get another dog. Looks just like Fluffy if you want. But you're not getting a new dog so that they'll stop crying. You know what I'm saying? You're not doing it because you want them to stop. They may be upset for a while, maybe a day or two. That's okay. And you need to tell them that, hey, it's okay. This is a little rough, this might feel like never going to get better. It's never, it's never going to be the same. And once again, you can tell them, yeah, it's not actually ever going to be exactly the same, but you did have a lot of time with Fluffy. And I'm sure you're always going to remember it as a positive, great thing, right? But it's never going to be exactly the same. We don't expect the new dog to be just like Fluffy, right? Validating, showing that you care is going to go a heck of a lot further. And I've learned this with little kids. I've come home before and I've got a 4-year-old freaking out or a 5-year-old freaking out. Nobody can calm him down. And I literally will go over there, get knee to knee with him and go, buddy, what is going on, man? You seem upset. Yeah, I'm mad. It's like, well, what happened? It's like, my brother stole my toy and broke it. And it's like, oh, if you can show that you care about that, it's like, oh man, my brother used to steal my toys and I hated that. Drove me crazy, and you don't have to do anything after that. They're going to be like, he gets it. He gets me. He understands. And you give him a big hug, and I can take a freaking out 4-year-old and calm him down in a minute, sometimes 2 minutes. And everybody's going, what did you do? What did you tell him? And I was like, well, not really anything. Well, what did you tell him to do? Nothing. what did you say? I just said, man, I can tell that you're really upset and I care about that.
I remember you using some ylang on some kids in your office and wowed those that were shadowing you. So you do have some oil tricks up your sleeve too.
Oh, absolutely. So what I'm saying is it's this idea that those oils are going to help you process the emotion, but we're not trying to like diminish it, get rid of it, or stop it. I just want to process faster, right? But it is a way to still validate them because you're saying, hey, you're feeling a lot of shame right now, and I'm going to use this oil to help you process that. But I care that you feel that way, and it's important to me that you feel cared about, right? So that's what you're doing. And so if you use the EO technique, the way you're going to use it is you're going to put the oil on the wrist. So you're going to put the oil on, you're going to rub those wrists together. Yep, Sherry's showing you right now. There's acupuncture points right here along the wrist. And they stimulate these meridian systems that help you to process these emotions faster. So you're going to put the oil on, rub your hands together. You're going to cross like this. Some people go like this, but you're going to cross like this, and you're going to put your thumbs right here, right on these points on your forehead. So you're going to go like this, and then you're going to breathe through your nose. And you're going to breathe out while you think about that emotion. Now, you're not trying to fix it necessarily. You're not trying to analyze it or make, place blame. Well, if my husband would have done this, all you're thinking about is how you're feeling about it. And as you breathe, it helps your body to process through that emotion. And people usually feel incredibly relieved when they do it. Now, sometimes they might have a stronger emotional reaction in the moment, and that's actually good too. They might be sad, and when they put that oil on, they start bawling. And I mean, I'll have people go, I was not expecting that when I came to your office. I thought you were going to give me an adjustment. I didn't realize I was going to bawl my eyes out about whatever this was. And so the oils, if you follow the chart, and you guys can get these charts from Shalene, Jolene,
Yep.
Sherry. I'm trying to think who else has these on this call right now. There's multiple people on here, Sarah, that all have this chart. And if you're feeling a particular emotion, follow the chart over, use that oil, put it on, do this with kids, do with anybody. And once again, you don't even have to have a big understanding of what's going on. You could say, man, I'm not sure what happened. I was with my family for the whole weekend and I'm just feeling incredibly whatever it is. You don't even have to completely understand it. It doesn't matter. You can still put that oil on, you can still process it. And it will tremendously help you on the emotional side. It'll help you on the physical side. And it helps to create a higher level of emotional intelligence. Being in touch with ourselves and what we feel is a big deal. And I do see this. I mean, I pick on my guys, but I get the caveman in here sometimes. It's like, hey, how's that? It's like, oh, I'm stressed. Well, what do you mean you're stressed? Does that mean you're frustrated or you're sad or I don't know. I'm just stressed. Super out of touch with what they're feeling and thinking and why that would be the case, right? And so creating this with our kids is awesome. Sitting down, like, what is it that you're stressed about? How are you feeling? Let's put a word on it. Are you sad? You angry? You frustrated? You lonely? And then when they figure that out, it's like, why are you feeling that way? Why are you feeling shame? What happened? It's like, man, I bombed that exam. I got an F. Like it was, and it's like, okay, so the failing the test made you feel crappy about yourself. It's like, okay, so why? Like, and then you might find out that they're perfectionists or something. It's like they're supposed to get straight A's, and it's like, okay, so bad grade, that's definitely going to hit on a real thread if you're a perfectionist. It's unacceptable to get anything less than an A. There we go. You use green mandarin, get some of that oil in there, process through that. It's going to help them quite a bit. So use the chart. It only takes a few seconds, a few minutes. It doesn't have to take a long time. And like I said, you can do this on kids, anybody. Oh, I hadn't opened up the chat window. Let me see this here. Yeah, Sherry said appropriate anger, kind of going back to my comment there earlier. So what questions do you guys have for me? I know, Shalene, you said you got quite a list here. What other questions could I possibly answer for you guys about, and maybe it's other oil usages in my office. I use the EO technique in my office at least a dozen times a day, though, just so you guys know. I mean, this is one, I do this on almost everybody that comes in. This is a big part of what we do. And okay, so Sherry asked, what oil do I use the most? I would say probably because of the pandemic, Breathe.
Mhm.
I've talked about this quite a bit, quite extensively, but if somebody gets COVID or the flu, but mostly COVID, no matter how sick they get, I'm not really worried about them dying unless it affects their lungs. If it goes to their lungs and their oxygen saturation starts going down, are you guys familiar with the pulse ox? Have you guys seen those?
Yeah.
You put this little thing, little device, and you can buy one on Amazon. They're like 20, 30, 40 bucks. You put it on your finger and it'll tell you what your oxygen saturation is. And your oxygen saturation should be 97, 98, 99 all the time. But when somebody gets really sick like that, you put the pulse ox on and it'll be like 82, 85. It's like, uh-oh, their oxygen saturation is going down because of their lung function. And that's when, in my mind, it's dangerous. So if somebody gets COVID or the flu or even pneumonia or whatever, breathe essential oil is absolutely critical. Now, there's other things that we're going to do to treat that virus or whatever it is, but to protect their lungs, breathe oil. I use a lot of cardamom too. I love cardamom for sinus issues, a lot of allergy problems in Texas, which leads to a lot of chronic sinusitis. And cardamom is amazing for that. I use from the emotional standpoint, if you look at those major 7 oils, there's 7 major oils that we use to process negative emotions. And I use all of those constantly. I mean, it's hard to say which one more than anything, but if you want to talk anger, I'd probably, we use a lot of lemon, and from a fear, anxiety, dread standpoint, we use a lot of cardamom. I use all of them, but those are probably the top ones. Because of, like I said, the immune system challenges, I go through a lot of On Guard and I go through a lot of tea tree oil. Those are pretty big. I use all of the oils. I mean, I use a lot of other ones as well, but I would say that if I was to pick, maybe 5, 6 top ones, those would probably be it. Just for my office particularly. Somebody asked with ADD and ADHD, what oils would I suggest? I really like vetiver and the Serenity blend with vetiver in it. There is Intune is the oil combo that they created. I personally like using frankincense and vetiver. I would say that those are probably my top 2, and maybe lavender, top 3 that I would use for somebody with ADD or ADHD. The thing with ADD and ADHD is those 2 are actually a little different. ADHD is that hyperactivity aspect of it. And then ADD is actually like the inattentive, but you're not like, an ADHD kid in my office is touching everything, opening every drawer, touching every lever on the table. I mean, they can't stop moving. But there's people with inattentive ADD who sit there in their chair in class, they don't move, but their brain is literally just popping into different areas and they're not focused one bit on what's going on. They're in another world, right? So from an essential oil standpoint, that's what I would say. Now, from a product standpoint, the MetaPower, anytime you increase mitochondrial function in the body, which that's what that's going to do, you're going to increase neural function. And when you increase neural function, you can help anything that has to do with anxiety, depression, ADHD, focus. You increase mitochondrial function, you're going to increase everything. And the product that I use, Mito2 Max. I mean, once again, Mito2 Max, you're getting that mitochondrial functioning again. So it seems a little weird because you would go, well, why would I want to stimulate mitochondrial function when they're overstimulated with ADHD? What actually is happening is the areas of the brain that are supposed to be calming them down and inhibiting them are suppressed. So you need to stimulate that part of the brain, if that makes sense. So they are still lacking stimulation. Does that make sense? I don't know if that makes sense.
Wow.
Right. In the right area of their brain.
Oh, great. Another thing I can remember at the beginning, I had so many allergies and was allergic to everything. And I went to Arizona and the orange blossoms were out and I just struggled and tried the lavender peppermint lemon thing and it did me no good. And I came home and you said, Shalene, did you try wild orange? And I'm like, why would I do that? That's what I was having a problem with. So would you explain why that would help?
Sure. So this is actually a really interesting thing. You know, the oil properties are different from the rest of the plant, if you will. So for instance, people will get on a medication and the doc will say, do not you take grapefruit juice. Don't drink grapefruit juice. And the grapefruit juice is going to interact with the metabolism of that drug. So I get people that'll come in and I'll say, hey, you should use some grapefruit oil. And they go, oh, no, I can't do grapefruit. I got an issue with that because of these meds I'm on. And I'm like, the oil is a different property. They're completely different properties than the pulp or the juice, because the oil is separate. So interestingly enough, when somebody has an allergy, their body responds to the protein or the pollen. So like if it's a food, it's going to be the protein. So gluten is the protein in wheat. Casein or whey is the protein in the dairy. Albumin is the protein in eggs. Like this is what your body's actually acting against. And so our bodies don't react against oils. It's very, very rare, and it can happen, but it's super rare that the body has a negative reaction against the oil. It's the pollen or the protein. So interestingly enough, you can take somebody who is allergic to something and you can give them the essential oil of that and it will actually help them. So you can take somebody who's allergic to cedar and give them cedar wood oil and it will help them with their cedar allergy. The juniper berry, same thing, right? So when I told her, why don't you use the orange oil? It's because the orange oil can give her body just a tiny bit of stimulation, but not to have a reaction against it. And it actually can normalize out your reaction a little bit. So keep that in mind. The oils are completely different in their properties from the rest of the plant per se.
And how would you compare oils to herbs?
Well, so once again, you know, the herb is looking at like there are all sorts of active chemical constituents in an herbal that are not going to be the same in the oil. The oil has certain chemical properties that are unique just to oils, right? You know, I don't know, pick something, limonene, sesquiterpenes or something, like those are only going to be found in the oil, not in the rest of the plant. And the herbs are going to contain different chemicals and modulators that are going to be in the plant, not in the oil. So there's a time and a place for both of them, but you're comparing apples to oranges, really. Right. So that's what's cool is because, you know, you're literally taking like these medicinal purposes of an herb and then you throw in the oil and it's like, here's a whole new thing. It's a different constituency and it's going to give you different things. And sometimes there's overlap. Like for instance, wintergreen is really high in salicylic acid, which is what aspirin's made out of. Aspirin is 100% salicylic acid and it's a pain reducer. Right. And so you can take somebody who doesn't want to take aspirin because it will tear up their stomach and they can use wintergreen oil topically and get the same effect.
Brilliant. Brilliant.
Somebody asked, what's the protein in an egg? It's albumin. That's the protein in eggs.
Albumin. All right.
I would also throw out this with ADD and ADHD. Especially for adults. If you're an adult with ADD or ADHD, you have to work out. You have to exercise. It will change so many things for you. And you're working out for your brain, not just for your body. I mean, I like to joke around and say, look, when we're younger, we're working out to have the beach body, get the six pack, look good and all that. As we get older, it shifts. It's like, as I get older, it's like, if I have a six pack, that's cool. If I don't, whatever. I want to be healthy, right? I want to sleep good. I want to have good focus, good energy. I don't want to get injured. And I want my brain to work. They're just different reasons why you work out. For my wife, I kind of joke around. It's like Prozac for her, exercise. Like it's a really big deal for how she feels. If she doesn't work out for a few days, it's funny. I mean, I can come home and be like, ooh, Jen hasn't been in the gym for a couple of days. Like she is feeling it, right? It's a big deal. So that would just be another little plug in there. It's like, if you got ADD or ADHD, or you have kids that do, they have to be moving. We just don't move enough in society in general. Kids don't move enough. We don't move enough. Pandemic made it even 10 times worse. I mean, you got people that roll out of bed in their boxers, walk to the kitchen, eat some breakfast, sit down at their laptop and work. And like, that's it. I mean, working from home can be nice, but man, you're not moving at all. I mean, we're not taking hardly any steps. It's like, we gotta be moving. We just don't move. So.
So true. So true.
Oh.
Anyone else have some questions? We're
I got a
nearing the
question about
end.
food dyes. Ooh, okay, this is a big one. I would tell you that there are food allergens that affect ADD and ADHD, but none of them are even close to as bad as red food dye. Red food dye. Now, the green and the blue don't tend to be as big of a problem, but any of the food dyes that are a derivative of red, so like purple and orange, any of those, pink, they are all going to be horrible. And there are some kids, now not all of them have this problem, but you should look at this to be aware. But man, I'm not kidding. I have some kids, it takes minutes for their behavior to change. And it can be super dramatic. I get kids, it seems like a demon possession or something. It's like, what the heck happened to this kid? He's like biting people. He's screaming for no reason, like nothing happened. He's literally just wailing. And it's just like, what is going on? They got red food dye and they have an issue with food dyes. Oh man, it is bad news. So anybody with ADD or ADHD should be very careful with food dyes. Yellow's not as bad. Yellow's kind of in the middle section. It's like I said, it's really the red that's bad, but the blue, green, and yellow can also be an issue, but they just don't tend to be as big of a problem as the red 40. That one's the big one.
Thank you. And I know you could talk a whole hour about sleep, but could you give us a minute or two of what your best doTERRA suggestions might be for sleep, or just natural suggestions?
Absolutely. Well, so one of the things that I like to tell people, and one thing that you can do with the new technology that's out there, this is the reason I bought my Apple Watch. Okay, you can track your own sleep with apps now for free, or you can buy the expensive app for $5. It's called Auto Sleep. And Fitbit has stuff. There's Oura Rings. Amazon has their own version. I mean, and what's super cool is you can look and you can see how much sleep am I getting, and it'll tell you if it's quality sleep and how much of it is deep sleep.
Mhm.
So what's kind of fun is to track your sleep for a little while and then use some oils. Use some Serenity, definitely my favorite. Man, that's what puts me down. Serenity oil, lavender, the stuff that's in Serenity. So if you look, there's Roman chamomile, there's
Vetiver.
vetiver. Yeah, vetiver is just really calms people down. There's vanilla, and what else is in there? There's 2 or 3 more. Is it marjoram?
Yeah.
So Serenity Oil Complex, and so the complex and the oil. So the Serenity Complex has a bunch of herbals in it, and those are going to calm down your brain, and actually it helps your brain wave to get down into the state that you need. Because once again, there are people that get in bed and they were asleep for 8 hours or whatever, but their deep sleep quality is terrible. And so they're still really tired, right? And so I love doTERRA's new sleep complex. Their new products are awesome.
Yeah.
And I'm telling you, you cannot go wrong. If somebody has a sleep issue, at least just for my office, that rises up to the top of the list, because it doesn't matter how many adjustments I do, how many changes I make to try and deal with that headache or whatever. If they're getting really bad sleep, and I'm not talking just a little bit, but if it's really terrible, they just won't recover. They just won't, they're not gonna, their nervous system won't be able to recover. So anyway, sleep, big deal. So I'm a big fan of Sleep Complex, big fan of the Serenity oil. The other thing is melatonin. Some people get nervous. They go, well, I don't want to take melatonin because I don't want to like stop making my own, right? Then people are kind of assuming that that's the case. Now, there are certain drugs where that is the case. If you give a guy testosterone shots, he will stop producing his own testosterone. And when he stops, he will crash. If his T was already low, it's going to be really low for a while until his body gets back to that, right? Melatonin doesn't do that. It doesn't create an addiction. It doesn't create a habit. You could take melatonin every day for a year and then you could stop. Now, you might not sleep that well the next night, but that's not necessarily because your body's addicted to melatonin or doesn't make its own. You probably had been deficient in it for quite a long time. So, but it's not an addictive habit forming problem. So, I'm a big fan of melatonin.
Good to know.
Melatonin is not just a sleep aid. It's actually an antioxidant. It actually kills COVID. People who take melatonin don't get COVID as much.
Yeah. Somebody asked about frequent urinating while asleep. I think as we get older, maybe.
Yeah, so and so
I
I'll
know
mention
me.
that, and also the tart cherry in the soft gels, that's because of B6, and that will actually help people to make more melatonin. That's one of the precursors that you need to
Mhm.
make melatonin. The valerian is also really awesome as it calms down the nervous system. So urinating frequently at night, bladder and kidney issues, the essential oil that helps the bladder and kidney a lot is going to be cardamom. And I can't remember without looking it up in the manual. Does anybody else have any of the manuals to look up bladder?
Yeah,
What are
I know cypress is one of their suggestions.
Cypress. Okay,
Yeah.
yeah. Oh, yeah, yeah. So Cypress is all about fluid movement,
Circulation, yeah.
fluid movement. Um, Juniper berry, there we go. Leslie saving the day.
Yep.
You need to figure out what's going on with the kidney bladder system. For some people, there's an electrolyte deficiency there. They need more salt, they need more potassium, and they just need more electrolytes in general.
Mhm.
And so they're not keeping their fluid in solution in their body, if that makes sense. So they're peeing more often. They actually just need electrolytes.
Interesting.
Yeah, now for some people, it's a food allergy. They need to stop eating dairy. It could be corn, so it could be any of the main food allergies, but I find some food allergies.
Mhm.
And then for some people, they actually need to go and get adjusted. They actually have a pelvic floor weakness. And any women who've had kids, pelvic floor weaknesses are rampant and can be a big deal. If you have, if you can't jump on a trampoline, if you get some leakage, if you laugh, sneeze, cough too much, or you just get bad urgency, like clipping along and all of a sudden, oh, I gotta go pee like right now. You know what I mean? Ooh, I'm gonna pee. It's like if it hits you really hard and fast, that might be a pelvic floor problem, and you might need to do some pelvic floor rehab and or some laser light or something like that.
Yep.
Oh, and caffeine is also a diuretic. Leslie mentioned that. Yeah, caffeine definitely, and caffeine is in your system for, I mean, it's about 8 hours or more. So some people, they'll go, well, I had my last cup of coffee at 3 o'clock or whatever, and it's like that could be a problem. The caffeine's still in your system by the time you get to bed.
Mm.
So you want to be careful with caffeine because caffeine will definitely make you pee.
Yeah. You have been a wealth of knowledge, and I hope everybody enjoyed this. I know I thoroughly did. So thank you, thank you, thank you for spending this hour with us. Have you seen the movie Wonka yet?
Yes.
Okay, you remind me of that main character. And so it's the curly hair, it's the curly hair, but it's the personality. Do you sing? Do you sing and dance or music at all?
Not as much. My
Oh,
kids do though, man.
they are brilliant. They are brilliant.
I get drugged into that, but I didn't grow up with
On
that.
Facebook, but I bought the movie and I just watch it. I've watched it with all my grandkids a few times now, and I think of you. And you just have this gregarious, fun personality, and you are wonderful. Thank you for sharing with us. I promise you, if you live close to him, you will benefit by going to see Dr. D. And this recording will go to many, many, many more people and help so many. Thank you for your time.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me on. I appreciate it. You guys, if you have questions, let us know. More than happy to answer them. And if you haven't used the EO technique, definitely use it. Get it out, get the sheet out, follow along.
Yeah.
Definitely helps people. And
I will email that out to everybody. I've got a couple people here I don't know. I'll get those from Jolene probably. And thank you so much. Next week we'll be talking about skin in the summertime. Join us next week for our next master class.
All right, guys, take care.
Thanks, Clint. Thank you all for being here. Made our day.